Well, the government's move to go after the media for doing source-based stories on the Rafale deal is backfiring, with the Editors Guild and other journalists' bodies issuing a statement today backing the Hindu and its editor N. Ram. On Wednesday, the Attorney General had told the Supreme Court that the government was thinking of invoking the Official Secrets Act against Mr. Ram for doing his investigative stories. But today, the Editors Guild of India said in a very strongly worded statement that it unequivocally condemns the Attorney General's comments and that any attempt to use the Official Secrets Act against the media is as reprehensible as asking journalists to disclose their sources. The Guild denounces these threats. That is what the Editors Guild has said in a statement today. Well, we have Mr. N. Ram joining us first on the show today. Mr. Ram, I think one of the things that has been a sort of fallout of this entire Rafale controversy is that the government has managed to bring the media together to stand solidly behind you and the Hindu.
Yes, that is an unintended consequence of this, and we're very pleased with that. There's been so much support, and I think the Editors Guild's statement, which you just cited, is very clear, very firm, and stands on principle. So I think it's excellent.
While it's important that the editors have come together and journalists are standing in solidarity with you on this, Mr. Ram, if you could explain to us the implications of a threat like this. Invoking the Official Secrets Act is not a joke. It is an all-out threat. Journalists do stories all the time based on document sources. How would you have known about, Bofors, Watergate and so many other scandals that came out over the years? If you could explain to us and to our viewers why this is a serious threat.
Yes, it goes back to the Pentagon Papers, which were leaked by Daniel Ellsberg. He owned up to it, and the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, came up with an excellent judgment on that, on the need to no injunctions against free speech and so on. And it goes on. So the charge that these are stolen documents is not new. It's been heard by the U.S. State Department, from the U.S. State Department on WikiLeaks, when all the stuff was published in the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Guardian, the Hindu, NDTV. We all published the U.S. Embassy cables and stories based on that. You know that, Nidhi. Now, in India, it is a threat because anything can be classified as an official secret, and you can go after after a publication that is very careful, even if it's very careful and prudent in using this information. They can simply, this sweeping legislation, this obnoxious act, which is a legacy of the British Raj in India, goes back to 1923, used against the people of India. It's continued and it can't be possibly used. The truth is, it is rarely used against publications. It has been rarely used against publications in independent India. So this is something new, this threat. In Bofors, we published something like 250 documents in print in those days. There's no digital platforms. It's happened on a number of other occasions. Various newspapers have done it. TV channels have done it. So this is rightly seen.
Mr. Ram, if I may ask you, do you think that this sudden sort of position in court by the government that, the papers were stolen, Official Secrets Act, does it betray to you a sort of a sense of nervousness over this story now?
Yes, it does, because there was absolutely no need to do it. They could answer these allegations. These are factual, fact-based stories. They've not opinionated very much on it, and the government is at liberty to respond for issues on high price, exorbitant pricing, on why parallel negotiations, and that's a quote from a document, were conducted, why anti-corruption clauses were given up in supply protocols, not in the intergovernmental agreement, but in the supply protocols executed by the private companies, Dassault Aviation and MBDA, with the government of India, why no bank guarantees were insisted on, why there was no sovereign guarantee, and above all, why you undercut your own negotiating team
and directly intervene
behind their backs.
Well, Mr. Ram, just to say that we all stand with you at NDTV, with the Hindu and with you. So thank you, and please do continue to do the journalism that you do. Thank you for joining us,
Greatly
sir.
Appreciate this, Nidhi, and from you and from NDTV.
Thank you, sir.